Welcome, all you wonderful, wacky witches and warlocks. Apologies, I'm running out of things to say in these intros, but welcome back to our necropolis, our city of the undead and the damned. We've really pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps, building this city from the snow and the flurries and the ashes, basically from nothing, one could even say. We've also built up quite the undead army in recent episodes as well to defend it and to conquer and vanquish our enemies, such as the Eternal Flame. We're currently still in the middle of trying to arm and armor every single one of them before we go about attacking a nearby fortification with them. We want to ensure that we have the best chance possible of taking it down, while also taking the minimal amount of casualties. I've previously mentioned that this process takes quite a while, but we only recently started getting another large influx of iron from some of our nearby mines with the wood elves, so it shouldn't be too long before we have every soldier prepped. In the meantime, as our undead smiths are working on the armor and weaponry, we are going to be expanding our city, as well as our storage within the city. Our major increase and expansion of mining and logging and hunting has left us with a lot of resources, and by no means am I complaining, but we need somewhere to store it all. I thought that bones, iron, and steel would be perfect right next to the blacksmith shop, obviously, and that way it's much more convenient for them to just go next door and grab anything that they need. For some of our lighter armor, of course, we're going to be using plenty of bones, and we're going to be storing those outside, as they're not near as valuable as the iron and steel inside, which I don't really think anybody's going to have a chance to steal our steel, but just in case. And of course, our metal ingots of steel and iron are also going to be used for the more traditional, albeit much heavier sets of armor. Thanks to having a couple of logging camps bringing plenty of wood in, we also don't need to grow our own with fiber corn, so we're going to be swapping that over to cotton. Softer materials like cotton can of course be weaved into cloth and thus used for some cushioned helmets and things of that nature. Obviously though, if we're going to start doing a lot more tailoring and smithing with cushioned armors and different types of apparel and just basically anything involving textiles, I thought that maybe we should go ahead and create a proper tailoring shop. And of course so we did. Not only do we have a nice area here where we can go about doing all the sewing and things of that nature as previously discussed, but we also have a great big section here dedicated to storage, which is great because previously we were storing most of our textiles outside in a wagon where they were still deteriorating. I mean, we're still kinda doing that, but not as much. With the Queen's girlfriend Helga being our best tailor, this is going to be a perfect workshop for her, as well as any undead that might be capable of assisting her in these duties, of course. This also means that all the equipment has been moved out of her old home, and any of our living folks could take it over at a moment's notice if they so choose. Speaking of the living, apparently a stunningly good-looking stranger is approaching the city and is looking to talk. Unusual to see such a good-looking impet clean and well-kept. Even more unusual to see them in such nice armor without a blade in their hand that they're trying to stick in your gut. Nevertheless, Osprey and Humps would protect the Queen as she went out to discuss with this fellow. He apparently is offering to join us and says that he'll make a deal that he'll help us out here in exchange for simple hospitality of joining us at the necropolis. He says that this is his purpose and he always serves his purpose. Yeah, sure. Look, impids aren't the most intelligent creatures, but they're also not the most trustworthy of people either. Apparently this guy wants to live here, help us out, and to make everyone happy. Sure, something tells me there's a secret afoot. We'll be keeping a good eye on him, but I guess we could use an extra set of hands, and a little bit of diversity never hurt anything. Besides, with Helga's old house cleared out of all that tailoring equipment, we do have a vacant room. Enjoy that soft, warm bed there, pal. One wrong move, it'll be the last thing you ever feel. In the meantime, with all the smithing and construction we're doing, Helga is doing a little bit of smithing and crafting of her own at the Arcane Forge, imbuing her necrotic energy into a specific special piece of armor. This, my friends, is a Shroud of the Soul Reaper. This armor is specially designed to serve as a conduit for a necromancer's unholy powers, increasing not only the strength of their undead, but also their power in general and their control over the corpses. Basically, it makes an already badass necromancer even more badass. I know, I didn't think it was possible either. Since the Queen controls the vast majority of our forces at this time, Helga thought it fitting that her lover be the first to take the first shroud. Eventually, as we get larger and larger with our necromancers and with our empire, we'll be able to have one of these shrouds for every single necromancer under our control and under our domain. Oh yeah, I feel it working already. I feel powerful. As do my soldiers, who are now fully equipped with some proper armor and some proper weapons, every last single one of them. It's about damn time. We've been working around the clock. Well, we always do. Nobody sleeps around these parts, but we've been working around the clock on this armor and what have you, and I'm glad the Horde is finally fully equipped. This is one of the last steps in taking on the Flames Fortress, as well as any enemies that stand in our path. Would you look at that? Speak of the devil. It's been a while since we've been attacked by the Impid kingdoms and houses. Perhaps they are the smartest after all, and perhaps we could just chalk this little pathetic attack up to a lapse in judgment. Either way, they might not be quite as pathetic as we initially thought. It looks like most of them are fairly well equipped, and the thing about Impids is they can breathe fire. The problem with that is that the undead are pretty susceptible to fire, and these mages that they have, as well as even their leader, are going to be very deadly if we're not careful. Let me see. We recently took in an Impid who seemed to be hiding some type of secret, and now a few days later we're getting attacked by the largest Impid raid that we've seen since probably episode 2. I think I know what Darkwood's secret was. Since he technically brought us more soldiers to serve in our army, though, I'll look the other way and let it slide. Before we steal the souls and vessels of these Impids, though, we have to go out there and kill them, so we're going to be marching our army that way. As they move into position, our rotting man Pitman here is going to use our catapult to try to distract them and maybe start thinning out their ranks a bit. Our first shot was a direct hit, an utter success. Our second shot, on the other hand, wouldn't do near as much damage, hitting their leader's pony, upsetting them enough to start their assault against the necropolis. Lucky enough for us, by this point the entire horde was in position, and as was Vikrov, and using her heat shield ability, she would be able to protect our troops from being burned, giving us the upper hand, because this stripped away the one and only advantage that the Impid army had against our own. In a turning of the tables, the Impid's leader would burn as Humps thrust his greatsword into his chest, and without his guidance, as you could probably guess, the others were running around like panicked bugs when you pick up a rock. Some would fight and die, but others with more brains and cowardice would begin fleeing the area. Not before we got a hold of them, that is. Don't worry, little fellow, your flesh will not go to waste. None of your flesh shall go to waste. You shall all serve a much higher and better purpose as meat shields and meat sacks in the army of the damned, the rotting horde, including your leader. And of course, you, Humps, will have you back on your feet in a jiffy. Thanks to the Queen's new shroud and her increased energy capacity, this was rather easy and not very taxing at all. I think it's safe to say she is almost definitely the most powerful necromancer on the entire planet. Not even that, she also has the most powerful army of corpses ever known to this world. Her dark powers cause the Impid's faces and skin to rot before our very eyes. Welcome to the Horde, all you. Welcome to the resistance, the movement. the revolution. Their leader is a great knight, and we know so because he fought valiantly in battle. It's not his fault that he lost to Humps. Most people lose to Humps. He's also the only other warrior other than Humps that we've seen that has Dragon Slayer armor. As we're getting our new merry band of fire-breathing warriors acquainted with some other proper armor for some of their lesser members, as well as our other undead troop, we are also going to be working on something new in the city. The necropolis really could use a proper prison. Up until this point, most folks that we've killed, we've either consumed their corpses for necrotic energy and mana, or we've raised them from the dead to be our very own fighters, of course. But what happens if we decide that we want to keep someone alive and take them prisoner? I know, such a silly concept, but a possibility, and thus a prison. A prison that, just like our city walls and gates, are going to be manned 24/7 by some of our rotting warriors. We don't currently have the knowledge or the equipment to go about making some cannons for our new prison, so we're settling for some rock boxes which have a decent range to dump boulders on top of people's heads. Nobody's coming in and out of here unless we know about it, or unless they want to die. Now then, touching on the issue of cannons again, I so badly wish I could continue and inevitably finish our research into advanced necromancy, giving us more insight into our very own God-given powers. But the fact that we plan on sieging the Eternal Flame Fortress soon, I think that we should really look into doing research into field guns that will allow us to create heavy cannons. Plenty of time to advance our powers and knowledge once our enemies are vanquished, and once we get enough of these cannons built so that we can easily breach the fortress's walls, that will be in our grasp. As Osprey and the others are tirelessly researching, we had a griffin enter the area. At this point, I'm beginning to wonder if these legendary beasts aren't somehow attracted to our undead. Maybe they're trying to eat them or something. Well, you beautiful bastard, I don't plan on letting you eat any of my corpse babies, so we're gonna poke you in the ribs until... oh, there we go. Not to worry, big guy, we're in the market for taking in warriors for our higher purpose and for our revolution. And you fit the bill perfectly, my winged friend. Shh, easy now. You're welcome. Come now, no hard feelings. Stabbing you in the heart was the easiest way to help you see things my way. Since we have two legendary mounts, with that being the Griffin and our Plastimuth, we'll be giving one to the Queen and one to our other Queen. So, in other words, Pluto gets the Griffin and Helga gets the Plastimuth. Now, the absolute coolness and dopeness of seeing our Dark Elf Queen riding into battle on the top of our Plastimuth isn't lost on me, as mentioned by Salavast1522, but I think it's just as cool, if not even cooler, for her to ride into battle on a flying Griffin while her lesbian lover rides into battle on the Plastimuth. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think so. You know, I found it quite interesting that we haven't been attacked by the flame in ages. The good news, there's no recent attacks. The bad news is they've realized they cannot stomp us out with sheer strength alone, which means we're unable to resurrect their experienced warriors for ourselves, and which almost definitely means they are most likely stockpiling their weapons and troops at the fortress, reinforcing it further and further. So when we do finally get the opportunity to attack, it is definitely going to be much more difficult than we have anticipated. And the cherry on top, because of all this, that also means that they have now figured out that we're resurrecting all their troops, and they're probably trying to find a solution to that. The best thing that we can do is hurry up and attack them before they can find a solution, and the fact that we just finished our research into field guns is going to help us with that significantly. We would waste absolutely no time with these new blueprints throwing together about 4 or 5 cannons, heavy cannons. The issue is that at the end of the day, we only had one ready for battle. We were completely out of steel ingots, which was a big problem. I had completely forgotten we had so much iron, we hadn't even told our Wood Elf allies to go about making steel alloy. This is an issue. We would send word out to all of our mines in the area requesting that they begin making steel alloy ASAP. We need it yesterday. This has unfortunately thrown a bit of a wrench in our plans of attacking the fort today, but In the meantime, we can further prepare our army, hardening and tempering their helms and breastplates, as well as making them some additional chainmail to go with what they already have, sharpening their blades, that sort of thing. And we can also name our troop of frostbitten warriors that we raised last episode, who are going to be Helga's personal guard, known simply as the Frost Guard, made up of a species of undead known as the Frostborn. Huge thanks to our friends Sham_Antic and Mr. Landshark55_55 for these wonderful names for the species and the guard. Speaking of personal guards, you know the Queen Pluto has a champion, with that of course being Humps, with him being the first of her army that was raised. Well, Helga had raised Az as her first minion, so why don't we do the same for her? Raising Az as an undead champion not only makes our army much stronger, but it also helps Helga increase her necrotic powers and push the limits of what she's capable of. And of course, now Az is going to be much faster and has a pretty significant increase in many areas. Something that magic cannot conjure, well, at least not by raising an undead as a champion, that is. I'm sure it's possible in some other way, is some better armor for her, which is something that we are going to be smithing. While we're waiting on that to be created, we would also start the research into advanced necromancy. Just wanted to throw that in there because I almost forgot to mention it. With that, Az in her spunky new armor is finally ready. We got her some nice plate mail, a great helm that we have of course dyed to the appropriate colors, an elven sword, and an elven bone shield. Not only is she ready to serve in battle, but I think she now has the equipment and skills that rival even that of Humps. We'll never find out though, because the closest these two are going to come to fighting each other is who's wrestling to try to get to the door at night to defend our queens first. Ah, such loyal beasts. Sleep tight, my queens, for in just a few days when we wake we'll have plenty of steel, then we'll have cannons, and then we'll have the fortress. Shit. An elemental assault is the least of what we needed. Gigantic elementals are going to be coming through a rift in the very fabric of space and time. And they're not here to make friends either. We would have only seconds to prepare for this assault. Thankfully, some of the wood elves were coming to drop off taxes, and they would distract them. Very briefly, that is. I don't know how this could have happened. It had to be bad luck because these assaults are so much more common to the north and quite rare to the south of the planet. No matter how they got here, they've come with the purpose of murdering all of us, so our undead horde would begin marching to the northeast to fight them. Wood elves bringing the taxes would be happy to see the rotting corpses coming to fight for their honor and for our taxes. Initial fights were looking like we were going to win this quite easily. But as we continued marching the army to the north through the blizzard, as we closed the distance with less snow interfering, we could see that they had amassed an army that would rival the size of our own. Nothing but flame elementals. This was all happening way too fast, and all of our soldiers were too scattered for us to use Vikrov's heat shield to protect them all. We were only lucky enough to be able to cast the ability on a few of them, and for the others, they would just have to continue to fight without it. Needless to say, but I'll say it anyway, this situation was less than ideal. Many of our warriors would arrive from the west to reinforce our ranks, as well as our powerful mages. But even their presence didn't help us as much as we had hoped. It was time for us to take more drastic measures. Our Frost Guard, as well as our two champions, Humps and Az, would be sent to the front line to assist. This battle was critical, and it was crucial that we won it. We would even send many of our undead beasts that were guarding the gates of the city to the south. We were desperate. Moincow began pushing her undead vessel of a body to the absolute limits, using all of her abilities in tandem. But even the souls of the damned couldn't hold these monstrosities at bay, and neither could our champions nor our Frost Guard. Our backs were against the walls, literally. Both of our queens had come out to try to assist, when they did, the entire army of elementals chased them down to the gate. Our legendary beast would come to our aid, but even they too would fall. Pluto managed to open the gates just in time, but unfortunately I'm afraid that Helga wasn't fast enough. She's dead. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. We weren't supposed to lose. We had come so far. We started with literally nothing. We built an empire out of bones and ashes and dead flesh. All for it to be taken. For us to lose everything. Literally everything that we had worked so damn hard to build. Every brick in our city walls. Every corpse in our army. Every single last piece. All for nothing? No. No. There has to be more. There has to be something. I refuse to die here today. There's only one way out of this. I have to go further than any necromancer has ever even perceived of going. I have to become one with death itself. That was something. I don't feel anything at all, except powerful and hungry. God, I'm so hungry. I'm hungry for the souls of those who have done me wrong. Let's finish this little fight, shall we? Who would have thought it were so easy? All I had to do was to give in, to crush my enemies, and to have an endless feast of elemental souls at my disposal. Ah, Humps, my old friend, I can't wait for you to see what I've become. What we've become. Rise from your slumber and serve your queen once again, now and for all of eternity. We have so much work to do, my friend. So much to rebuild. So much to conquer. First, we'll need to regroup and heal all of our undead, rotten soldiers. As for those living who have been among our ranks, they must first shed their flesh before they're allowed to rejoin. Rise now, Osprey, as a true member of the rotting horde. There is only one way for this world. The way of all things. Death. It is inevitable. And all shall shed their flesh. All shall rot and decay. All shall join the horde.